the first thing I did is I tried to look up a study and found the study, I think it was from Harvard, that said there's like a double rate of colon cancer or something. And I went down to the bottom and I found out that while the relative rate might have been doubled, the absolute rate of cancer in those people who ate meat went from, was it 0.5% to 0.7% or something stupid like that.
Mike, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, we grow cattle here, not very many, but we grow a few on our small place, about 30 acres. And we usually take them from, I guess, newborn through to about a year, and then we send them off somewhere else to be raised. But every now and again, we will pick one, and we'll say that's going to be the one for our freezer. Now that makes it sound like we eat a lot of meat, but we don't. I mean, an animal might last 2 or 3 years. But this time round, the animal was ready before the freezer was empty. And so we delayed the animal, and then I figured that we've still got 10, 15 kilos of meat in the freezer, maybe more. And so I just simply said, well, it's got to go before we put the other one in the freezer. So I doubled the amount of meat I ate. I mean, it's still not a huge amount. And then one day I was walking around the farm, and I walked up to the farmhouse, and I wasn't puffed up that last hill like I normally was. And I thought, that's interesting. What's changed? Because I hadn't been exercising anymore. And I put it down to the meat. And so what I did is I went inside and looked and decided I'm going to eat more meat because the freezer was still full. And before I did that, I had to know how much meat I could eat and how long I could eat it before I died of all the things. The first thing I did is I tried to look up a study and found the study, I think it was from Harvard, that said there's like a double rate of colon cancer or something. And I went down to the bottom and I found out that while the relative rate might have been doubled, the absolute rate of cancer in those people who ate meat went from, was it 0.5% to 0.7% or something stupid like that. And so I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. So I went onto the net and I looked it up. And the first video I found was of a woman who was pulling apart the study from beginning to end, and said, look, these are the things that don't make sense. Right from it's an epidemiological study. You know, it had the healthy participant bias, all that kind of stuff. And so at that point in time, I knew I could do more meat, and I did. But in the intervening time, more videos came up. As they do, you watch one video and the rest come up. And convincing me that, trying to tell me that meat was healthy. And I knew, I mean, obviously it wasn't. But enough people came up and made enough of an argument that I thought, well, I can even go further. I've got to get rid of the meat. Let's do it. And increase my meat again. And it felt great. Well, no, let me backtrack. I didn't notice that it was causing harm or grief to me. And then I saw a few carnivore videos. I remembered what Jordan had said to Joe, 4 years ago. And at the time I thought they were crazy. But it wasn't so crazy. So now this all happened in, 4 months ago? So I think I decided about 3 months ago that meat only would be a thing. And then probably 2 months ago, I would call myself mainly carnivore. I started to keep notes of my weight and other things about 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago. And since then, I've just noticed, little things that have happened that have convinced me even more that this is the right way to go.
So this is really interesting because the normal way that people find carnivore, or the usual way, is they see the video first and they go, oh, that's the thing. And then they see more videos and they go, okay, well, I'm going to try it. But your situation was you basically did it. You got good results. And then you thought, okay, well, I wonder if there's kind of proof one way or the other out there about whether this is harming me or not. So you just kind of went from the other angle.
Almost, yeah. I mean, my first looking was, can I find, is it harming me and how much?
Mm.
And then it went from there to how good is it?
And so it's been 4 months total.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of things have you noticed in the 4 months?
Okay. Well, the one that I like to say was the best for me is I had arthritis in my left hand, and I didn't even notice when it disappeared. But one day I was just moving things around, and I thought to myself, "There's something missing." The pain, and it was all gone. And since then, I started writing. I thought to myself, "This is interesting." So I started writing things down. That things that I had noticed that used to notice, but no longer notice. One of the big things everybody says is the skin. Um, I don't. I can only describe it like this. When I've been out, when I used to be out working, you get hot, sweaty, and dusty, right? You go in and you have a shower and you feel nice and clean afterwards, right? I felt like that all the time. Yeah, and so that's the thing. I mean, I would say, yeah, that's the thing that intrigues me the most. I know I hear people say that they get skin disorders go away. I didn't really have any, but there we go. I mean, that's the promise, right?
It's this strange kind of feeling of being fresh all the time or not being inundated with junk or something like that, right?
I think so.
Mm. Did you notice anything with oral health? Like a lot of people talk about similar thing with their teeth.
Yes, I did.
Mhm.
Yes, similar thing. I do. I mean, I did watch a video about oxalates and how sometimes they accumulate on the teeth. I have noticed that a little bit, but other than that, they just feel fresh all the time, except after my Friday night meals. So I would call myself 90 to 95% carnivore, and I separate my meals. I saw another video which suggested you should have meals for fuel and social meals. So one night a week I have a social meal with friends, and I do the best I can. So I mean, I would say I push it towards keto as much as I can rather than carnivore because that's it's a social meal, and then that's one meal a week on Friday nights. And so after that meal, the next morning my mouth isn't so fresh, but it's only another morning of bacon and eggs or sausages and away we go.
Yeah, but it's interesting, we can notice those subtle changes, right? Just having one meal different and yeah. Yeah. So how are you eating bacon and eggs for breakfast and then what happens following that?
No, I would say I have bacon or sausages and eggs for breakfast, maybe 2 or 3 mornings a week. So this morning I just had short ribs from yesterday, so I cooked up the short ribs yesterday, put them in the fridge, and just cold meat. So I just sliced those up and had a snack on the while I was working. Um, I have 160 kilos of everything in an animal in the freezer, so it's whatever is at the top. We have around about I think about 40% of the animal that comes back to us as mince, ground beef, and so I mean ground beef is I guess my least favorite. But now I've got to figure out a way of getting between that and the sausages, getting about maybe 2 meals a week of ground beef. So I'm just working through that now. But everything else, sometimes it's a mixture of sous vide or slow cooking or air frying. However I can, or however I feel, and however much preparation or forward thinking I've done before I want to eat depends on that dictates what I eat.
So that's 2 meals a day?
I don't count them generally, but yeah, probably.
Okay. So you follow more intuitive eating kind of.
You're hungry, I go across and get some food, and I eat. And I'll have a plate full or a snack, and I'll go away, and then I won't eat until next time. It was interesting. The other morning, I woke up and I just had to have a big meat meal as soon as I go out of bed. This morning, it was 10 o'clock before I put something out of the fridge and started on it. Um, most days I'll eat around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just go across and make myself a steak and eat up, and then I'm happy for the rest of the day.
Oh. And how about other people in your family? Are they eating the same way or?
Okay, it's just me here on the farm at the moment, so I don't have a problem. But when I'm with other people, I like I say, I do my social meals, and I do the best I can. So, for example, on Friday night, I go to my mate's place and we have takeaways. I've changed it now, so I only buy from a takeaway that's been there for 50 years. So they got the old recipes, right? I go with the old meat burgers, and then what I do is I get them to put extra meat on, so another burger patty, and then just before I leave here, I make myself some chaffles, and I take those with me, put them up in a bit of foil, take them with me, throw away the bun when I get there, slap the chaffles around it, and away I go. So it's pretty low carb by the time it gets to me.
Oh, that's really cool. But do your friends have they ever said, "What are you doing?"
we it's whatever we want to bring, or it changes every week, and so it doesn't. They don't worry. We've gone through the pizzas. The pizzas we used to have before Carnivore. We used to do barbecues. Barbecue's going to be easy next summer. That's going to be really easy. But no, they have no worries. I went to my family's place over the weekend, and it's a tradition to have nachos. And of course, nachos with corn chips in seed oil. You've got to be kidding. So what I did is, before I went down, I thought to myself, I wonder how good I can do. And so I found out about masa harina, which is the corn of the South Americas that's been prepared with lime and lye. And what it does is it dissolves, it pre-digests the protein, I think, and gets rid of many of the mycotoxins. So, and then what I did is I got that, and I got a bowl of beef fat and cooked my chips with beef fat. So, whereas 30%, the 30% of corn chips might be seed oils, mine was pre-digested protein, pre-digested corn protein in beef fat. And so I look at that and I think I did okay. I mean, it was still a less than ideal meal, but it was about as ideal as I was going to get in the circumstances.
Yeah, under the circumstances, yeah, if it's the best you can do, it's the best you can do, right? And the thing is, as well, it's, for those kind of one-off things, as long as you're not continuing it day after day after day, then it doesn't really matter.
Well, the next morning, straight into the bacon and eggs again.
Mm. Yeah. At this stage, like, are you saving lots of time every day because you're not thinking about food and preparation and stuff?
Yeah. It was interesting. I was reading something this morning, I think it was on Reddit, and they listed out the benefits of being carnivore. And one of the ones I had to laugh at was a clean fridge. And then I read the comments afterwards, and that was the comment that a lot of people found funny and common. They didn't say it, but they have all experienced the clean fridge.
Yeah, you just reminded me of something there. Do you remember when we were kids, and our parents would be having to defrost the freezer every few months?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, if like if it was just stocked with nice simple cuts of beef and stuff, it would have been okay. Wouldn't have had to be defrosted like that.
Perhaps because it's only going to get icy where the meat isn't. What I did there, Dave, was when I put the meat in the freezer, I made sure it was mixed up. It doesn't come mixed up, but I made sure it was mixed up so that I didn't have to go digging for a particular piece. Which, as it came out, I figured that by the time I get to the bottom, it'll still be mixed, and I'll just have a variety of meat as I go day by day. I just pick something off the top and go.
So you don't have a particular preference most days. Just go, oh, this one's on top, I'll do this one.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. So you were raising these cattle for how long? How long have you been doing it?
Oh, 15 years. So we moved here about 15 years ago, and so we just buy the cows with the calves, newly born calves, that other farmers have not wanted because they might be born out of season or something. So we just pick them up, keep them for a year, and then sell mum and the calf, and then bring the next lot on. And so it's more a way to manage the farm than it is anything else. Well, it's not a farm, but the properties. So we will have 30, between 30 and 40 animals on here at any one time, and they just go and make sure that all the grass is short.
So for you to maintain that many head of cattle, I mean, what is the day to day?
Everything from paddock to paddock.
Oh, that's
Uh,
it.
oh, pretty much maintain the fences. Now and again, we bring them up to the yards to check their health, and once a year we bring them up to the yards and put them on a truck, and that's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this stage, you're feeling like, well, this is it. There's,
Oh yeah,
carnivore's the way to go.
I think so.
What would I have to do to make you go back to a regular diet? How much would I have to give you?
I don't think you could, Dave.
Well,
I fear.
you're right. I probably couldn't unless it's $10. But like with imaginary monopoly money.
No, seriously, I don't think you could. I don't think. Okay, I would say that deep in the back of my mind, I'd like to give up that one meal a week, but at the moment, the social side of it is valuable enough for me to not. So there's your answer, right? I'm not going. Yeah, there's no amount of money you could give me for the whole week. There might be there might be some value in a second night, but I don't think so. But I'm unlikely to give up that one night of social eating at this stage.
It says a lot about this way of eating that, you could, like, assuming you could get as much money as you wanted, most people wouldn't give it up. Most people don't want to go back to the pain and the extra weight.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I remember it was about 5 years ago. I woke up one morning and I was just having a bad week, and honestly, I felt like a 70-year-old. And I thought to myself, is this the rest of my life? And I don't know what I did at that stage, but it took me a few weeks to get to start moving around again and feel good. But I know that. I know that's in my future if I don't look after myself.
And you can really put your foot on the accelerator if the less you look after yourself, the more the foot slams down on the accelerator, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did all. I just out of interest, I did all my tests over the last couple of months, figuring this would be a nice baseline. And I mean, the only thing that came back is the usual, right? And the higher LDL, and the doctor said something like, "Oh, that looks a bit high, Mike." And just left of that, he says, well, he used words to the effect, "I think you might have a deficit of statin." No, I think it's only a thing he put like that. He says, we could put you on statins, he said, but it only helps 10% of the people. Just look after yourself. And so I went out and got all the other bloods done and a calcium score. Everything's sweet. So I will know definitively whether carnivore is killing me in a year, because all those numbers will be worse, right?
Assuming like LDL stays high,
Oh,
and
look,
I mean 200 or something is not actually high, right?
no. Well, that's exactly the point. I think I looked at that. I think it was the video about the all mortalities versus cholesterol, and I was healthier. Sorry, I had less chance of mortality at my level than if you had a cholesterol of less than 200, according to the doctors. And of course, they want you to have less than 200, right? but the all causes of mortality risk for me is about the same, and I'm on the other side of the other side of the mineral.
I haven't seen the exact studies, but I've spoken to Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, and he says there are studies that show that once you're over the age of 50, if it's high, you know, you're going to do better.
Okay.
And he was saying that even people, once you're over 50, even people with familial hypercholesterolemia seem to do better. But as I say, I haven't done that. I haven't seen the studies, so I'm only mentioning what he said. But
and they're all correlation as well, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
there's no way you can find causation in these things.
yeah. Well, see, that's the trouble as well, because at the end of the day, every situation contains its own little bits and pieces of nuance, you know? It's like when the anti carnivore cardiologists that are on Twitter, they'll, you know, someone on Twitter will post like, oh, I was on the carnivore diet for 3 weeks and I had a stroke or I had a heart attack and whatever, and they're all over it. They're like, see? And it's like, well, you know, it's been 3 weeks. Firstly, these things don't develop over 3 weeks, but also like there's a lot of nuance in every individual case, you know.
Well, you've heard the urban legend that people die when you change the clocks for daylight saving. Have you heard of that story?
I think I've heard something like that. Yeah.
What it boils down to is that when I don't know which way it is, but when the clocks go back, more people die. When the clocks go forward, less people die. So there must be something about daylight saving, right? And what it turns out is that when you take it over 2 weeks instead of 1 day, then the deaths are exactly the same. So what it boils down to is that if you get a bit of extra sunlight, if you get a bit of extra sunlight, you'll live an extra day. If you get a bit less sunlight, you'll die a day early. And so with this, I was on carnivore for 3 weeks and I had a stroke. What it might mean is you're going to have a stroke at 1 week and carnivore gave you another 2. It surprises me how much, it's just more and more, it surprises me how little we know or how much false information or how much we assume. I was just looking up gallbladders last night, and everything says if you've got a gallbladder problem, you eat less fat. I mean, everywhere. I mean, it's in the literature, it's doctors, the gallbladder doctors. And yet I found a study that was started in 2014, finished, and they just released it, I think, the other month. They've had a couple of up-to-dates. And what they boiled down to was there is nothing in the literature that would support that contention. And in fact, there's 2 studies that directly contradict it. And here we are. Where did we get that information from? Don't know.
It really feels like it's just one of these kind of things that just gets repeated enough times and people just go, well, that's fact.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm. Yeah. So someone comes to you and says, look, Mike, I want to start this carnivore diet thing. How do I get started and how do I stick with it? What advice would you give them?
Don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, I found just eating more meat was a bonus. So that might be a way. And I think the usual refrain is just give it 90 days is probably the best, right? I mean, if you intend to give it 90 days, there's nothing stopping you finishing earlier. And if you get to 90 days, there's nothing stopping you stopping. So that's probably the best advice, I think.
So if people want to reach out to you, Mike, do you have a website or a YouTube or social media?
No, it's just me. I'm a pretty private person. So if somebody has a question, they can email you, Dave, and you can forward it on, and I'll reply through that way if you want.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.